Good morning from MDL's Hamble Point Marina. It's a beautiful day. We've got a nice force 4 wind out there according to Bramble Met, which is just 2 or 3 miles outside, and with a bit of luck we'll have a bit more, because what I want to do today is discuss the whole question of how to reef a boat safely and without fuss. Reefing should be a motor function, something you do just like taking the fenders in and chucking them in the locker. It's a normal part of all sailing, and for not everybody is it that easy. So we're going to show how to make it easy. I've got my mate Toby here with me. He's going to pull the strings with me. The boat is operated by FlexiSail, which is a boat share membership club. It's a great idea. A lot of people get to go sailing through this. It's one way of offsetting the dreadful expense that we all have to face. Still, as they say, if you can't take a joke, you shouldn't sign on. So I'm going to go get cracking with Toby and we're going to go sailing. Well, we're lying to anchor on the Isle of Wight and we've had a nice lunch. We're lying almost head to wind, but not quite. So the plan is to hoist the main where we lie on the anchor. We think we can do that, although we're not quite head to wind. We've set the boom to one side and we're going to let the main sheet off so that the sail can feather as best it may, and then we'll see if we can pull it up. And once we've pulled it up, we're going to put a reef in it, because we've got plenty of breeze for one reef in the main. So that's a nice easy way to do it. It's a sort of set piece really when you're sitting on the anchor. We'll be able to see how it works, see what all the controls do, and after that we're going to do it when we're actually sailing. But the purpose of the reef is to get the sail down on the boom nice and tight. It's got to be right bang down on the boom. And this boat has got single line reefing, which means all you've got to do is ease the halyard until you've got enough slack in the luff, and then wind away on the winch to pull down the reefing line, which starts at the front of the sail, comes through the boom, through the back of the sail, back down, and finally ends up at the winch. And what generally happens is the front goes down first and gets nice and tight on the boom, and then the back follows it. And you must keep winding until the foot of the sail is flat, and then you've got yourself a reef. You can set the halyard back up for a tight luff and you're ready to go. The boom is supported by the topping lift while all this is going on. It's important to remember that, because once the sail's set you may or may not need to slacken it, but when you're going to put a reef in when you're sailing, you'll certainly have to have a look at it. One more point: very often people will pull through all the slack on the reefing line thinking it's making life tidy. It's not. It's making life hell for the next bloke, because when you pull the main up, the reefing lines snag and you can't get it up, so you have to pull them all out the end of the boom. A total pain. So if you drop the main and you've got nice slack in the reefing line, just chuck them into the stow and leave them there for the next guy, and he will love you. Okay, right, off we go. You set, Toby?
All set.
Off we go. We can see that the slack in the reefing line that we left this morning is making the job easy for us. Imagine if they were tight, we'd have difficulties. Up it goes, nice and sweet. We're not really head to wind, but it matters not, because we've let lots of slack out in the sheet, so the sail itself is head to wind, as it were, even though the boat's not. Now the main's up, we're going to put a reef in it. It's always better to pull it up and then put a reef in, because if you do that you can see what's happening. If you try and reef the sail with it all in a bag, you tend not to get a very good reef in it. Things don't work out as well as they should. So we're going to put the reef in now. The topping lift is already on, so all that Toby's got to do is ease away on the halyard, so he's got plenty of slack in the luff, and then pull down on the reefing line, which is marked as reef 1, and that should do the rest. The sail is spilling wind nicely, so we're ready to go. He's letting the halyard away now and he's watching it as it comes down. He's watching that first reef cringle, which is now probably in about the right place. So off he goes with that long line, and he's pulling most of it down without using the winch. Otherwise you'll be all afternoon doing this. And here he goes, coming in lovely. And when it's nearly there and it starts to get heavy, he pops some turns on the winch, grabs the handle, and winds it down until it doesn't want to wind down anymore. You can see he's being quite sensitive with it. He's not hauling it as though his life depends on it, but he's got plenty of tension on there with the high power winch. The jammer's on and that's off the winch now. He's now going to set up the halyard to get some tension in the luff. Just a little pull on the main halyard because he set it so nicely when he brought it down just by looking at what was happening. He's looking at what he's doing, not looking at the winch. And there you have it. The main's reefed. He's just pulling the slack in on the other reefing lines to make sure that they're not hanging around like an old washing bag. Nice and neat. There we are, and we're ready to go. Now, we're actually reasonably canvassed at the moment, as it's turned out, with the full mainsail, but we've got a good breeze blowing, so we're going to put a reef in the main so we can see the actual technique for doing it when you're sailing along. And we are currently on a beam reach. We're going to come a little bit closer to the wind and let the main sheet off. The boat will be driven by the head sail, but not very fast, and the mainsail will flap, and then we can just pull the reef down just as we did at anchor. No problem at all. The trick is to sail so that you can have the mainsail flapping but still retain steerage and control. And the way we do it is by hitting a close reach. That's with the wind just a little bit further round than it would be when you're close hauled, and sail on the Genoa only. So we're now sailing on a close reach and the mainsail is flapping beautifully. The head sail's keeping way on and she's steering like an old shoe, no problem at all. Toby is letting off the vang so that the boom is free and can move as it will. Next he's going to let away the halyard. The topping lift is already on, so the boom is supported. I'm on the helm and I'm keeping her going nice and straight. Down comes the halyard. On goes the reefing line, pulling off all the slack. Then the winch for the last little bit. Make sure the clew's nice and tight. There it goes, nearly there. See how sensitive he's being with the winch. Lovely job. Halyard back up so we have a nice straight luff. The boat's still sailing. Lovely job. Back on comes the vang. And we're away. Back on comes the sheet. Tuck away those extra pennants into the bag and we're on our way. There are a number of ways to reef the mainsail on a modern yacht. Today we're looking at single line reefing because that's what this boat happens to have. It's a popular system and it does save a certain amount of labour when you're pulling the sail down. It can create some issues when the sail goes back up again. Nothing's perfect in this world, and if it's set up right it means you can do most of the reefs from the cockpit without ever having to get out, which is very good for safety. There are three other systems that you might come across. The first is in-mast reefing. Now there's a lot of that around. It's relatively simple to use and it's a whole nother discipline really, and it's for another day. Same we would say for in-boom reefing, which actually is what I have on my boat. That works very well and you can have a nice full proper sail with the right sort of shape and you can reef it to any level you like. So that's got a lot going for it. The last type, which until recently has actually been the main type, is what you call simple slab reefing, and it works like this. Instead of having one line that pulls down the tack, the front of the sail, and the clew, which is the back of the sail, the reefing line which comes back to the cockpit usually just reefs the back of the sail, the clew. The tack, you have to go to the mast, and somebody eases the halyard, you grab the luff of the sail, pull it down and hook the cringle onto a thing called a ram's horn that comes out at the front end of the boom. Very easy. Once that's on, you set up the halyard and then you pull down the clew, the aft end. So the technique there is 1, set up the topping lift, let off the sheet and the kicker or the vang, ease the halyard, hook on the tack, halyard back on again, and then wind down the clew. Sheet back on, vang back on, topping lift away, and the job's done. On race boats, it's amazing how quick that could be done. I used to race Contessa 32s many years ago, and me and the lads got so good at it that we could do that job in less than 25 seconds from a standing start, which makes you think, doesn't it? It's a very simple system and it works well, and of course there are various sophistications that you can attach to it, but basically that's it. We've got single line reefing, we've got simple slab reefing, we've got in mast and we've got in boom, and today Toby and I have cracked single line reefing.